Hey, it's your Open Source Advocate, and I am back. I want to talk today about a program called NginX Proxy Manager. This is basically the way that you should serve up websites. So don't misunderstand that I'm saying NginX is the way you should do it. I'm saying that you should use some kind of reverse proxy manager or a proxy manager. And really what that means is a request comes in, and this acts as the proxy. It says, okay, I see the request. Now I know, based on configuration, what to do with this request. So this is kind of your single point of entry, and then this figures out what should it do. So if you're into self-hosting like I am, then you may have a lot of things you want to self-host, maybe not just one application. If you just have one application, then you may not need NginX Proxy Manager, but it's still good to have it in front of that application because you get some other benefits from it, and we'll kind of go through that. But whenever you start looking at self-hosting applications, especially, I get a lot of questions from people about how do they do this on their home network, because I show you how to do things out there like when you're running a server on DigitalOcean or on a site like SSD Nodes, which I'll talk about here in a minute. That's kind of the way that I like to run things because they have better uptime. They're more guaranteed to be, to be there when I need them. My home internet is great. I'm perfectly happy with my ISP, but they absolutely limit my upload speeds because they don't want me running a server from my home for the whole world to be accessing. They don't want to put up with that bandwidth that would be needed for that. So I don't have a business account. It's just like 12 megabit per second maybe. It's just not much, so it's not very fast for trying to host a web server. Now, if it's just for me, then that's fine, and I can definitely do that, and I do have some servers here at my house that we could work with. But a lot of times I'm doing things from another server. So when you want to talk about how do you do this from home, I want to talk slightly about the difference between doing it from a host and doing it from your home. And there's really not much difference except for one little piece of hardware. So if we go back over here using NginX Proxy Manager, and I don't like presentations on YouTube that use a PowerPoint, so that's why I have two little slides just to show you what's going on. So this is basically what it is. I want to run a server inside my network at home. How can I do that with as low a risk as possible? This is the key right here. You can do this easily. If you have a router where you have access to port forwarding, then you just need to know what port your particular machine or server is running on. And then you need to forward that port through your router. So if you know you have a server running on port 3000, then you'd go into your router settings and say, I want any request coming into port 3000 at my public IP address to go over to this server on port 3000. That's it. If you do that, then you should be able to access that server and that website service through your network. So basically, this is the internet on the left side of this line. And then this is your network on the right side of this line. So this is the internet making a request, somebody out there making a request. This is your router. So your router that sits right there after your modem, basically. Maybe it's all one thing. It may be a single built-in piece of equipment, but there's a router there that says, I heard this machine make a request and I'm going to feed stuff back to it. I heard this machine make a request, I'm going to feed stuff back to it. So it's routing that traffic. That's why it's called a router. In this case, you're kind of using it in a different way. A request comes into your router, and you say, oh, I see that request, and I know it's on port whatever, 80. So I want to forward that, and normally you would just say, I'm just going to forward that right to this machine, or right to this machine. But that's kind of bad, because eventually you get a lot of things running, and you have a lot of ports forwarded to a lot of machines, and then if you have the security issue, suddenly you don't know what's open, you don't remember, somebody starts scanning your server for ports, and they start getting through to things that you didn't want them to. I'm not saying that's always going to happen. As far as I know, that's never happened to me when I've done that in the not so great way in the past. But my suggestion is, again, internet, your router. This is just a server in your network. So these are machines in your network, kind of like client machines like I'm using right now. Maybe this is your server. Maybe this is a client machine acting as a server. It doesn't matter. It could be a Raspberry Pi. Just know that this is where you would want to run the program we're going to talk about tonight, NginX Proxy Manager. And what it does is it proxies that traffic. So you're basically saying, hey, take anything that comes in on port 80 and forward it to this machine, to NginX Proxy Manager. And then NginX is sitting there listening, and it's going, I'm listening for requests. I'm listening, and boom, it gets one. It goes, oh, I see a request for this application or for this website. So when you register a domain, for instance, I have fixitdelrio.com. I can put blog blog.fixitdelrio.com, and I can say somebody requested blog.fixitdelrio.com, and my router just automatically forwards that port 80 request. It doesn't care what it was for. It doesn't know. It doesn't care. And it says here, NginX, do something with it. And it says blog.fixitdelrio.com. Oh, that's this machine. It's running over here. So NginX then says, hey, I need the information off of that website. And my machine says, okay, here you go, and hands it back. So that's why you've got this little triangle. And then it sends it right back to the person that requested it. So NginX is acting as a proxy. It's proxying that request to the right place. Same thing if somebody says forum.fixitdelrio.com. Again, this thing just says, I just saw something on port 80. Here you go, NginX. Figure out what it is. NginX goes, forum? Oh, that's this machine over here. So it sends the request the same way. The machine says, I see that request, let me fulfill it, sends it back to NginX, and NginX pushes all that stuff back out to the internet for you. So that's what it's doing right here. It's a web server and a proxy. Now, you can also be running the web server on the same machine. So this could be NginX running with a web server on it, and that's how I run my servers out on the internet. So it says, hey, I see this request for 80. Here you go, NginX, do something with it. And NginX goes, oh, chat.fixitdelrio.com. So we have blog, we have forum, chat. Oh, that's me. Boom. So it just makes a request to itself. It just goes in a little circle and it goes, here you go. And it sends it back out. So that's all that's happening. That's what NginX does. It's just this little guy that says, here, I can figure out what to do with the things that I'm getting requests from. I hope that helps. I hope that's kind of clear. So now let's go do the interesting part, because that was all great, but you know, it's not super fun. So NginX Proxy Manager, and I have it running here on my server out on the internet. Now the only difference between what I'm going to show you here and what you're going to have to do to run this at home is you have to set up your router. That's the only difference. Everything else is the same. NginX is here and it's going to route requests to certain servers, whether they're virtual or whether they're actual physical servers, it doesn't matter, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's going to route requests and it's going to fulfill requests. The only difference is you need to tell your router at home, this is the thing in between your machines and the internet. If you see a request on port 80, send that to this, whatever it is that's running NginX. It could be a Raspberry Pi, it could be a full-on server, it could be just a client machine you have running. It's just saying, hey, I see port 80 and I need to forward that over here. If you don't know how to do port forwarding, we can talk about that later, but it's different for every router, so it's really a hard topic to cover. Most of the time there's something in there that says port forwarding. Port or port range forwarding sometimes is the other way that it says it. It's the same thing. You just want to set up 80 to point to 80 at some IP address on your network, and you need to know what this IP address is. That's it. Other than that, you're done. So when we get here, you can see I've got 9 different hosts that I'm running on this server. And what's going on is this server is at my domain forceterminate. So forceterminate.com. And you can see that I bring up my host and I log in and I've got my NginX proxy running. And then right here you can see, so I've got fixitdelrio.com. So this is not forceterminate.com, this is fixitdelrio.com. So I see a request that comes in for fixitdelrio, and all I did was I went to my domain name service. So we'll go out here and I'm on forceterminate, but let's go open up Hover and I'll just show you. They're all pointing to the same IP address, which is that server that we're looking at. So I just create an A record that says fixitdelrio.com should point at this IP address of this server, or it can point to forceterminate.com, it doesn't matter. It's pointing here so that when somebody says, I want to go to fixitdelrio.com, the DNS service says, okay, I know where to go, and it sends it to this server. It's the same way for this site, judymcgonigal.com. It's the same way for this site, lopezpaintandbody.com. It's the same way for all of these sites, lubbockglug.org. So you notice these are all different domains, but they all point to this same server, okay, which is really in real life forceterminate.com. They all point to this same server. And when they get here, I have them set up in NginX so that it says, oh, I know what to do with this. I know where this goes. And that's this piece right here. It says I'm going to send it to this IP, which the reason I do it is because I could say localhost if I was running NginX straight up on the server, but I'm running it as a Docker container. So because I'm running it as a Docker container, it's kind of got its own little network, and if it says localhost, it means within Docker. And this is not coming in through within Docker. It's coming in from the internet to the actual host. So all I have to do is tell it, go to the host IP address on this port, and that's where that Docker container is listening with the WordPress install for Fixit Del Rio. So if I go and type in fixitdelrio.com, NginX is going to get that, it's going to see it, and it's going to go, oh, I know where to take you. Here's the website. All that happened was, right here, my request came in from the internet, it went to this machine, which is running NginX, and NginX goes, oh, Fixit Del Rio, I know what to do with that. I'm going to send it over to this port where Docker's listening on this port. You see here, I've got a different port for this one. Same exact steps, same things running, it's still just a WordPress. But if I go to it, it's going to bring up this website because NginX is going to get that request and it's going to go, oh yeah, I know where you want to go, here you go. It's the same thing over and over and over. Now the way you do this is you set up the NginX Proxy Manager using Docker. So we can go over here and talk about how to set this up. So you click on Get Started. You can see all of the information here. And we want to go to Setup Instructions over here. Now there's a config file that you want to set up. This isn't a hard config file. You can actually just copy this thing and paste it. You don't have to do anything special here. All you're doing is telling it, hey, this is a base configuration. Here's the database. Here's what it's going to use. Then you can run down here to running the app. And basically, you're just going to take this information right here, and you're going to create a file called dockercompose.yml. So I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I would do nano. I'd be on my server. Now you want to do this on your server, nano. dockercompose.yml, just like that. It's going to open up a blank file. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to highlight all of this. Make sure I get the whole thing. I'm going to do Control-C in the browser to copy. And then in here I can right-click and do paste, or I can do Control, Shift, and V, like Victor, to paste. So now I've got this entire YAML file pasted in. Now, I don't want to mess with anything except for a couple of things down here. This is correct. I want 80 to point to the 80 of Docker container. I want 443 to point to the 443 of the Docker container, and I want 81 to point to 81 of my Docker container. So these are correct. Make sure that those aren't in use by anything else on your server right now, and if they are, you'll need to fix those little conflicts, okay? You can point these to something else. You can create a forward if you need to, but I highly recommend leaving it like this because NginX should be the thing that's listening on these ports, and then it should be handling all of the requests that come in and dealing with those things for you. That's the whole purpose of it. So as we move down, I leave disable IPv6. I just go ahead and uncomment it like that because I don't need IPv6 today. Someday we might, so I just leave it disabled. So if you take out that little hashtag in front, it becomes enabled. That's what we want. If you're not going to do that, if you want to leave it like this, you actually need to just remove this entire section because it won't like it with this leader section and then not having anything here. It's going to gripe at you. So either remove the hashtag and make this true or false, one or the other, or remove the section. Next, volumes. I didn't mess with the volumes. I left them exactly like they're set right here. Okay. Depends on DB, which is just a little network that it's going to create. Don't sweat that. Leave it alone. Now down here, this is where I changed up some things because this is setting up a MariaDB or a MySQL database for you. Change the root password, change the MySQL database, change the MySQL user, and then change the MySQL user password. So the root password and the password are different. This is the root password for MySQL. Make it really strong, really hard. You should never have to mess with it. The database you can leave it as npm, that's fine. The user, change this to something else, okay? Change this to anything you want. Brian, Rob, Bobob, your name, it doesn't matter. And then your MySQL password should be a nice strong password, you know, really long, something that is hard for somebody to crack, okay? So this password is the user password. This password is the root password. So you want both of those passwords to be strong. Once you've got those set, then you're pretty much set. Now we'll go back up That's really all you have to change on this thing, okay? So you're going to go here and you're going to save. So you're going to do Control O to save, and then Control X to X out of that, okay? Now it's telling you Docker compose up -D. So this is how you start this thing. Now the config.json file that they're talking about is right here. Now this is the part that you need to make sure matches. So create, even though they have them in this order, I suggest you create your Docker compose file first, then come up here and copy this with Control C, go back to your terminal, and you're going to create a config.json. So nano config.json, just like that. And then you're going to Control Shift V to paste in those characters or all those values. Now you need to make this match. So whatever you just changed your DB password to, your MySQL password, you need to put that in here. Your username, put that in here. We're going to leave this as npm. Your host, leave it alone, it's DB. And your engine is MySQL. So leave all these, leave these three alone. Just change this one to the username you picked and this one to the user's password that you picked. Not the root password, but the other one. Leave everything else the same. And then when you're done, hit Control O to save, Control X. Okay? When you're ready to start this thing, all you do is type Docker compose up, and that's going to tell it bring up this Docker container and use the Docker compose file that's in the folder that I'm in. So you should only ever have one Docker compose.yaml file in the folder. The system shouldn't even let you have a second one with that same name. So make sure that the config.json file and the docker compose.yml file are in the same folder. And you're going to type this and then -D. This means run as a daemon. A daemon is like a process, a Windows process. Those things just run in the background and you don't really know they're running until they crash on you. Well, daemons are kind of the Linux Unix version of that. So this -D means run as a daemon. It also means like run in disconnected mode, which means you can disconnect from the terminal session and it's not going to stop your application from running. If you do it like this, it's going to give you a bunch of text on the screen as it starts up, but then it's also going to create a problem because when you try to exit out of that terminal, if you disconnect from SSH or whatever, it's going to stop that Docker container from running. So it's -D is what tells it, even if I disconnect, just keep going. Don't stop because I disconnected. Once you do that, you hit enter and you're done. Once it's up and running, you can go to your IP address, and basically port 81 is how you get to the admin console that we were looking at. So IP address, port 81. So you say, okay, great, I've got this thing up and running. Your dashboard is going to look basically like this, except it's going to have a 0 right here as well. It's going to say nothing. That's okay. You can just click in here. You're not going to see anything, but you'll see this button that says add one. So we're going to go do that. And I've got this one called net data, so I'm going to delete it, and we're going to go back and rebuild it basically. Somewhere I have net data. Right here. So we're going to go here. And we're going to delete that entry. It's going to say, like, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. I know it seems crazy. So right now, if we try to go to netdata.forceterminate.com, yeah, okay, so there we go. So it's going to give me this warning because it's like, hey, you're trying to go to a site that seems like it should be legit because I just deleted my entry. So it doesn't know what to do with it. Okay, so I killed that. I'm also going to go take care of it on the Docker side. So I'm going to close this because it's just annoying me. I keep clicking on it by accident. So we're going to go into Portainer here. And we're going to just go into here. And we're going to find the net data. So these are all the containers that are running on my server. So we're going to go down here. We're going to find net data somewhere in this list. Right here, net data. We're going to say stop. Okay. It stopped our net data. We're going to go into it. And we're going to say remove. I'm going to tell it, yeah, you can get rid of the volume if it had one. And it's gone. So now we can look, there's no net data here. Okay, net data is gone. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you real quick in GoDaddy. So it's kind of a few steps. So step 1, set up NginX Proxy Manager on your server. Step 2, get your public IP address. So if you are doing this from your home network and you don't know what your public IP address is, then you'll do ipchicken.com, ipchicken.com. When you do that, you will get your public IP address here on the screen. As long as you're not connected to a VPN, it will show your current public IP address through your ISP. This is something you're going to need. If you're doing this on a server on DigitalOcean or on some other host like Linode or SSD nodes, then you need that public IP address. But for now, if you're doing this from your home, that's how you get your home IP address. So you're going to go over to your domain registrar, whether that's GoDaddy or Hover or Namecheap or Gandhi.net, it doesn't matter. Whoever your registrar is for the domain that you're working with, you need to go there and you need to select to edit your DNS records. So we're here and we're going to go into my DNS records, and right here you see I have net data. So all I did was say add a record. I went down here and I said I want to create an A record. Now I could have made a C name because I'm using forceterminate.com and they're both going to go to the actual same IP address, but it's okay. Just in case you don't do that, we're going to say A record, and then I'm going to type in the name, which is net data in this case. It's already up there, so I'm not going to save this, but I would type in net data, and then I would say I need to put it to the IP address that I want it to go to, where my NginX Proxy Manager is running. So you put that IP address in there. Maybe that's your home IP. Maybe that's a server IP out on the web. You can change this. So on most sites, you can make this less time. So if you do 600 seconds, that's like 10 minutes. And then you click Save. Make sure everything's spelled correctly. It's an A record. I'm going to do netdata.forceterminate.com. So it's just netdata. I'm going to put it to this IP address. So when somebody makes a request for that site, I want it to go to this IP. And then I'm going to set a custom time for 600 seconds. So it'll take 10 minutes or so for that to update when you save. So be patient. Save. Make sure it says it did it. Make sure you see it up there in the list of whatever you use for your DNS management. And then go get a coffee. You know, go watch a couple of YouTube videos and then come back and check it and see if it seems like it's going to the right place. So I'll show you how you check it. So that's good. We've got that set. We've got net data. It's going to the right IP address. So we've set up our host. Now if you want to check it, you can do this. So now I'm getting pings. That means everything's running. It's going to the place where it expects to go. So this is being forwarded to an IP address, and I can even check to make sure it's the right IP address right here. If I don't get anything back on ping, or if it says timed out, timed out, timed out, then DNS hasn't updated yet, and it's not going to be able to get to your server yet. So to even start working on the next part, first make sure you can get to your URL and that it comes up with the right IP address. Once you've got that step done, you're good. If that doesn't happen after you set, like if you set like an hour and it hasn't happened in like 3 days, you might have something set up wrong. You might need to go back and recheck it. But generally you should get this pretty quickly if you set up your ping. So once you check your ping, you're good. So now we're going to go back over here. So I'm going to set up net data on a Docker. So I'm going to go back over here and I'll show you. So let's just SSH into this. All right, we're SSH into our server. And here I'm going to say Docker PS. Now it's going to show me a lot of Docker containers, and I'm going to actually make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to look at. Okay, there's a lot of Docker containers here. But I'm not going to see net data, I don't imagine, because here's my names. We'll just look down through the names real quick, and it's not, because it's not running. So if I do docker ps-a, now we'll probably see a net data container. No, I told it to remove the container. Okay, good. So net data is gone. Now, what I want to do is I want to set up net data. So this would be whatever you're going to set up for your server if you haven't already done it. So basically I'm going to go here, and I've got it open somewhere right here. So I'm going to copy this command, and I'm really not going to change anything about what it's doing here. Alright, so I've got the command basically copied directly from the NetData site, but I'm going to add one thing. I'm going to add another port, and I want that to be 3943 so I don't have a conflict with some of my other containers that are running. But I want that to point to 443 on the actual NetData side. So once I've got that set up, I'm good with everything. I'm going to hit enter, and this should create my container. And it does. Now we can go test this right now. I don't have the forwarding set up yet through NginX, but we can actually just open this up and we can say netdata.forceterminate.com :1919999. And it takes us and we can see what's going on the server. So this is kind of cool, and I'll do a video on NetData later, but it's running. So we've got that up and running. That's great. If we go to Portainer and we refresh, we should see NetData in here again. And we do. So here's our ports, everything that's being forwarded. Now we're going to go here and set up NginX Proxy Manager. So I'm going to say I want netdata.forceterminate.com. This is what it's listening for. So I'm telling it, listen for this address. If it hears that address, I want it to point to the IP address of my server. If I go back over here to GoDaddy, I can just grab that IP address. I can grab it from here on NetData as well, if you're wondering if that is different. It's not. I'm going to paste it in now. Got to make sure you don't have any extra spaces in front, but there we go. So I pasted it in. And I'm going to tell it, when I hear a request like this, I want it to go to that port that I just typed in, 19999. Now this alone will work. So I'm going to hit save just to show you. I haven't done anything else with any of these other tabs, but right here we're saying listen for this and point it here. So I'm going to save that. It's going to refresh. So we're going to go back and we're going to take off the 19999. Now it's just saying netdata.forceterminate.com, and you see it's going to come right back up and it's going to show me the exact same stuff. So I can see everything that's happening on my server, my stats, things like that. Alright. Now I say, okay, that's great, but that's on port 80, that's not secure. You can see the little slash to the lock. It's not great, right? So I want to go and I want to say, wherever my net data just went, right here, I want to edit this guy. So I'm going to do edit. You don't have to do this in pieces like I am. I'm just kind of trying to show you what's happening. So I want to get SSL, and I know I've got it set on a certain port. It's not 443. If it was, I could skip this piece. So if I was just going to do it straight up 443 to 443, that would be right. I could just go here, and I could say request a new SSL certificate. I can even say force SSL, so if somebody tries to go to port 80, it's going to push them over to the SSL side regardless. And then here's my email address for Let's Encrypt, and I say yes, I accept their terms and conditions, and I could just hit save. This would totally work if it's 443 to 443, but since it's not, I have to do an extra step. So I'm going to say add another host name, host entry. And we're going to do the same thing, netdata.forceterminate.com. Make sure you spell it correctly. Here, I'm going to pick HTTPS for secure. I'm going to put in the same IP address. Get rid of the spaces there. And then here, I'm going to put in 3943 because that's what I have the container listening for. So 3943 is going to forward over to 443 inside the container, which is great. So this is going to tell it, hey, you need to go to this port so that you can deal with this, and then Docker's saying, oh, I know what that is. Okay. Then we've got all this set. So once you've set this, you go to SSL and you set up exactly what we just did. I want to request a new certificate. If you don't have a certificate already, say I want to request one. In this case, I've got one down here, so I can probably just grab it and use it, but it's okay. We'll request one. You can say force SSL. You don't have to, but I suggest it. If you're going to set up SSL, you should get people to use the SSL side of your site. So I do this, force SSL, and then I accept the terms, and here's my email address. I'm going to hit save. It's going to go out and it's going to tell Let's Encrypt, hey, I've got this request for a new certificate. If everything is set correctly, this box should go away with no errors and we'll be good. If it's not, it's going to give you an error and a pop-up to say, hey, something happened, you need to go fix this thing and then try again. No errors, so we should be able to go to our 443 site. So if I go over here and say HTTPS, we should still get in. We do. And now we've got a valid site. So now I've got this thing set up and it's running. and it's off of NginX Proxy Manager. Now, I know this video takes a little while, but once you figure out how to do this and how to let NginX really do its thing for you, it'll take you, I don't know, it probably took me 10 minutes total to get all of these sites set up through NginX Proxy Manager. I'd say Discourse was the trickiest because Discourse kind of expects to be running on its own server, even though I didn't have it that way, so I had to do a few special things there. I'm not pointing at Discourse here, but Discourse was definitely a special one. GitLab wasn't terribly hard, but it wasn't terribly easy, but that was more because I was migrating from another GitLab and there were some weird name conflicts that I had. But everything on here is pretty straightforward other than Discourse, which I had to put in some extra stuff for. So it was really easy. So I run a lot of servers off of this. So I know I normally talk about DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is great, but I want to kind of call out this other site that I found on Reddit, on the self-hosted Reddit. So ssdnodes.com. So what these guys offer is a little different from DigitalOcean and Linode. So DigitalOcean and Linode both have short-term, what I call storage. You can run them for long-term if you want to, but it's what I consider short-term storage. So it's really, you set up a small server. So like on DigitalOcean, for example, I can set up a 2 CPU, 2 gigabyte server with 50 gigabytes of hard drive space, I think, and I think it's $10 or $15 a month. I don't remember. So $120 a year, maybe $150 a year, somewhere in there, you know, $170 a year, something like that, just depending on which price it actually is. So you have those two things, and it's a small server, but that's $150, $175 a year. Now imagine that I was running multiple servers. I think I had 12 or 13 servers I was running on there. Some of them were the $5 server, some were the $10, some were the $20, some were the $15. So that adds up over time. I was lucky enough to see somebody post about SSD nodes over on Reddit. These guys are not paying me, by the way, for this. I do have an affiliate link that will be in the description. So if you're interested in signing up for SSD nodes, please click on that link because it'll give you a credit. It gives me a credit. Helps both of us, but it helps me keep these things going for you guys. I also have DigitalOcean affiliate links in the description. So if you're thinking of signing up for DigitalOcean and you haven't already done it, please use that link. It gives me a credit. It gives you a credit for some free usage on the DigitalOcean site to kind of see if you like the service before you even start paying anything. So on DigitalOcean, I can spin up a server, use it for a couple of hours, spin it down, and they're going to charge me for those 2 hours. It's very little money. It's almost nothing. It's really easy for me to spin something up, do what I need to do, and destroy it. Same with Linode, I imagine. SSD nodes isn't intended to be up for hours. So DigitalOcean could be hours, days, weeks, months. SSD nodes is like, hey, you can do this monthly, but it's going to be pretty expensive, like $50 a month. But this is a beefy server, so don't misunderstand. The server I'm running is a 32 gigabyte RAM, 6 CPU, 320 gigabyte storage SSD server. So that's a beefy server for what I normally run. That's an amazing server for what I normally run. So again, I'm going to say that again, 32 gigs of RAM. 32 gigs of RAM, okay? That's just memory. 320 gigabyte SSD. That's a really nice size SSD for what I'm doing. And then it's got 6 CPUs. So this is a great server for me to use for a lot of the things that I'm doing. I've got lightweight usage 99.9% of the time. So if we go over here and if you just want to look at their pricing, I'm happy to show it here. If you're tired of listening to me talk about this, great. But look at this. If you do this thing for 3 years, it's $109, and you're looking at 16 gigs of RAM. I mean, this is a pretty nice server right here, right? If you jump up, I mean, $149 for a year for that server that I just told you about. So remember, I said it's for a $15 server on DigitalOcean for a year is $175, and that's a little 2 gigabyte or 3 gigabyte RAM, you know, 1 or 2 CPUs. This thing's 32 gigs of RAM and 6 CPUs and 320 gigs of storage. This is a much beefier machine by far. If I was to try to get this on DigitalOcean, it would cost me probably 10 or 12 times as much as this. It would cost me $1,000 a month nearly, I would imagine. So this is really cool. I like SSD nodes. I moved a lot of my long-term stuff over here over the last week. So just understand I'm still testing out their stuff, but I really like the offering. They've been very great to communicate with me, which is awesome. So I'm looking forward to more of that. I really like what they've got, and I hope they can keep it up. And if folks go to them and start using what they've got, I think they will. So I'm really excited about this. So there's my plug for SSD nodes. Again, I don't get paid by them unless you use my affiliate link somehow, so just understand that. Alright, so we've got Portainer, we've got NginX Proxy Manager. The things that I'm showing you guys are starting to come together for you, I hope. You know, now that I'm on this server, I can say, okay, now I want to see kind of how it's performing. I can say CTOP, and that's one I did a video on last week, and you can see here's the different servers and what they're doing and the traffic that they're getting. You know, what the CPU usage is, what the RAM usage is, you know, receive and transmit, and you get some really nice information out of CTOP. And of course you can move down here, you can hit enter, and you can say, you know, let's do single view. I can see what my GitLab server's doing here. I can kind of watch what's happening with it. I'm not using it right now, so it's not doing much of anything, which is fine. Okay, but you can kind of see what's going on with it. I can hit enter to get back out of it. I can come down here to net data, which is running. I can check it out for a single view to see what's going on. So you can kind of see what's going on with it. Okay, hit enter and go back out of it. So this is a really great tool. So all the things that I'm trying to teach you guys and give you information about for self-hosting, I hope that's coming together for you. The only difference, again, between what we did here and what you're going to do at your home network is you set up NginX Proxy Manager on a machine, and on your router, you make sure to forward port 80, port 81, and port 443. Those 3 ports, you're going to forward those to whatever machine that is on your network. Other than that, make sure your ports are all firewalled and not forwarded to any other machines on your network, and then use NginX Proxy Manager to do the rest of the work. That's what it's for, and that's what it's built for. Hope this helps. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you get something really great out of this, and if you do, like, subscribe, share this with your friends, share this with your colleagues, let people know about it. Give me some constructive feedback so that I can improve and make things better for you in the future, but I appreciate you. I'm almost at 2,000 subscribers, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about people on YouTube with millions of subscribers, but to me that's a ton, and I appreciate all the people who've subscribed. I'm looking forward to doing more of these things. I'm looking forward to some giveaways. I've been doing some testing, and I've got a video that I'm putting together, but it's taking some time because there's a lot of pieces to it. I hope it'll be really useful and interesting for you guys, but I'll have a giveaway after that one, so I'm really looking forward to hitting that 2,000 subscriber mark, and I think it's going to coincide with that video pretty nicely, so that's great. But really, I appreciate it. Have a good one. Stay safe.